Wall was now breathing very slowly and deeply, as thought its invisible occupant was asleep. Harry put on his pyjamas, took off his glasses, and climbed into his chilly bed while Ron threw all things. It'll look suspicious. Oh yeah, I forgot. He crossed to the door and bolted it. What are you doing that for? Creature, said Ron as he turned off the light. First night I was here he came wandering in at 3 in the morning. Trust me, you don't want to wake up and find him prowling around your room. Anyway, he got into his bed, settled down under the covers, then turned to look at Harry in the darkness. So, got there yet, said George eagerly. The weapon serious mention, said Harry. Let's sleep, more like, said Fred with relish, now sitting next to Ron. We didn't hear about that on the old Extables, did we? What do you reckon it is? Said Harry. Could be anything, said Fred. But there can't be anything worse than the Avada Kedavra curse, can there? Said Ron. What's worse than this? Maybe it's something that can kill loads of people at once, suggested George. Maybe it is some particularly painful way of killing people, said Ron fearfully. He's got the cricket's curse for causing pain, said Harry. He doesn't need anything more efficient than that. There was a pause, and Harry knew that the others, like him, were wondering what horrors this weapon could perpetrate. So who do things got in now? Asked George. I hope it's our side, said Ron, sounding slightly nervous. If it is, Dumbledore's probably keeping it, said Fred. Where? Said Ron quickly. Hogwarts? Bet it is, said George. That's where he hid the Sorcerer's Stone. A weapon's going to be a lot bigger than the stone tough, said Ron. Not necessarily, said Fred. Yeah, size is no guarantee of power, said George. Look at Ginny. What do you mean? Said Fred. You've never been on the receiving end of one of her bad bogey hexes, have you? Shh, said Fred, half risen from the bed. Listen. They felt silent footsteps were coming up the stairs. Mom, said George, and without further ado there was a loud crack, and Harry felt the weight vanish from the end of his bed. A few seconds later they heard the floorboard creak outside. Their door, Mr. Weasley was plainly listening to check whether or not they were talking.
Hedwig and Pigwidgeon hooted dolefully. The floorboard cracked again, and they had her heading upstairs to check on Fred and George. She does not truce us at all, you know, said Ron gravely. Harry was sure he would not be able to fall asleep. The evening he'd been so busied with things to think about that he fly expected to lie asked for hours mulling it all over. He wanted to commune talking to Ron, but Mrs. Weasley was not cracking back downstairs again, and once she had gone, he distractedly had others making their way upstairs. In fact, many laggard creatures were centering softly up and down outside the bedroom door and hearing the care of Majin Carter. Teacher was saying, batteries are Harry will be studying absorb this them. And Harry saw that cricketer had cannons for heads and were willing to face him. He dusked. The next light he knew he was curled into a warm ball under his bedclothes, and George Slout Boyle was filling the room. Mom say, get up, you breakfast is in the kitchen, and then she needs you in the drawing room. There are loads more boxes that she throws, and she's found a nest of dar puffle scancing under the sofa. Half an hour later, Harry and Ron, who had dressed and breakfast quickly, entered the drawing room, a long high calding room on the first floor with olive green walls covered in dirty tapestries. The carpet exhaled little clouds of dust every time someone put their foot on it, and the long moss green velvet curtains were buzzing and throws smirking with insatiable bees. It was around there that Mrs. Vesey, Hermione, Jimmy, Fred, and George were grouped, all looking rather peculiar, as they had each tied a cloth over their nose and mouth. Each of them was also holding a large bottle of black light with a noisy at the end. Cover your face and take space, Mrs. Vesey said to Harry Ron the moment she was them, pointing to two more bottles of black light starting on a spread legged table. It's a doxide I've never seen at infestation with a head. What's that house elf been doing for they lasted 10 years? Hermione's face was half concealed by a tear tower, but Harry distinctly was her through a reproachful look at Mrs. Vesey. Creatures really old, he probably could not match. You'd be surprised that Cratchit and made you want to. Hermione said, Sirius, who had just entered the room carrying a blood-stained bag of what appeared to be dead race. I've just been feeding Bookbag. He able in rapidly to Harry's angry look. I keep him upstairs in my mother's bedroom and with this writing desk. He dropped the bag of the rats into an armchair, then bent over to examine the locked cabinet, which Harry now noticed for the first time was shaking slightly. Well, Molly, I'm pretty sure this Bogart said, soaring, peering south the keyhole. Have a shufty at it before we left it our. Knowing my mother, it could be something much worse. Right, you serious? Said Mrs. Swayze. They were both speaking in careful light, polite voices that told Harry quite plainly that nears and forgotten the disagreement of the night before. A loud cladding bell sounded for Down Street, followed at once by the cacophony of the cramps and wails that had been tired the previous night by tongues nothing over the umbrella stand.
I keep telling them not to ring the doorbell, said Sirius exasperately, hurrying back out of the room. They heard him thundering down the stairs as Mrs. Black screeches echoed outside the house once more. States of dishonor, filthy half-breeds, blood traitors, children of filth. Close the door, please, Harry, said Mrs. Weasley. Harry took as much time as he did to close the drawing-room door. He wanted to listen to what was going on downstairs. Sirius had obviously managed to shut the curtains over his mother's portrait because she had stopped screaming. He heard Sirius walking down the hall, then the clattering of the chain on the front door, and then a deep voice he recognized as Kingsley Shacklebolt saying, "Hestia's just relieved me. So she's got Moody's cloak now. Thought I leave a report for Dumbledore." Feeling Mrs. Weasley's eyes on the back of his head, Harry regretfully closed the drawing-room door and rejoined the Doxy party. Mrs. Weasley was bending over to check the page on Doxys in Gilderoy Lockhart's Guide to Household Pests, which was lying open on the sofa. "Right, you lot, you need to be careful, because dogs bite and the teeth are poisonous. I've got a bottle of antidote here, but I'd rather nobody needed it." She straightened up, positioned herself squarely in front of the curtains, and beckoned them on forward. "When I say the word, start spraying immediately," she said. "They'll come flying out at us, I expect, but it saying on the sprays one good squirt will paralyze them. When they're immobilized, just throw them in this bucket." She stepped carefully out of the line of fire and raised her own spray. "All right, Squirt." Harry had been spraying only a few seconds when a fully grown Doxy came soaring out of a fold in the material, shiny beetle-like wings wearing thin needle-sharp teeth but its fire-long body covered with thick black hair and its 4 thin fists clenched with fury. Harry could fall in the face with a blast of Doxycide. It froze in mid and fell with a surprisingly loud thunk onto the one carpet below. Harry picked it up and threw it in the bucket. "Fred, what are you doing?" said Mrs. Weasley sharply. "Spray that at once and throw it away." Harry looked around. Fred was holding a straggling Doxy between his forefinger and thumb. "Right," Fred said brightly, spraying the Doxy quickly in the face so that it fainted. But the moment Mrs. Weasley back was turned, he pocketed it with a wink. "We want to experiment with Doxy venom for ever scathing snacking box," George told Harry, and his boss. Deftly sprang to Doxy at once as that suit strand for his nose. Harry moved close to George and matted out of the corner of his mouth. What up, screamed snacking box? A range of sweets to make you ill. George whispered Kippish, a very eye, and Mrs. Weasley back. Not seriously ill, mine, just ill and enough to get you out of class when you feel like it. Fred and I have been developing them this summer. There's a double-ended, color-coded juice.
If you eat the orange half of the parking party of throw up moments, you're being thrusted out of the lesson of the hospital wind, you shallow the purple half. At the moment your testers are having a bit of shopping self booking lost and joy to shallow the purple and tested. You said, Fred, we take it in a trance. George did the fainting fancies. We do tried the nosebleed nose. Mom sound with been dealing East George jog shop still on then happy Mr. Spreading to the adjust the nose on this straight. All thanks to you, mate, said George, but don't worry, Mom hasn't got a clue. She won't read the daily posted and any more clues of this telling lies about you and Dumbledore. Harry genied. He had frogged the whaley. These two take the sonnites prize money as get one in the trivial. Me to help them reels. Tion to open a job shop, but he had a style great to now that is his part in furing their place was you know to Mr. Whale. She did not think running a joke shop was a suitable career for two of the sons. I think well Treacle chose after lose Mr. Wellstay pointed at the trusty glass-fronted Sabines standing off either side of the mantelpiece. They were crammed with an odd assortment of August, a selection of rusty transit silver. Harry could not understand and last placing of the all and ornate crystal bottle with a large opal set into the stopper, full of what Harry was due-sized blood. She left the room, sluicing the door careful, hint here at one everyone descended over to the window to look down on the border.
Mandangas, said Hermione. What is he brought all those cauldrons for? Probably looking for a safe place to keep them, said Harry. Isn't that what he was doing the night he was supposed to be telling me? Picking up dodgy cauldrons. Yeah, you're right, said Fred, as the front door opened. Mandangas heard his cauldrons through it is disappeared from you. Blimey, Mum, won't like that. He and George crossed to the door and stood beside it, listening intently. Mrs. Black's screaming had stopped. Mandangas is talking to Sirius and Kingsley, Fred muttered, throwing with concretion. Can't hear properly, do you reckon we can risk the extended earth? Might be worth it, said George. I could sneak upstairs and get a pair. But at the precise moment there was an explosion of sound from downstairs that rendered extended earth quite unnecessary. All of them could hear exactly, for Mrs. Wellesley was shouting at the top of her voice. We are not running a hideout for stolen goods. I love hearing Mum shouting at someone else, said Fred with a satisfied smile on his face as he opened the door an inch or so to allow Mrs. Wellesley's voice to permeate the room better. It makes such a nice change. Completely irresponsible, as you we haven't got enough to worry about without you dragging stolen cauldrons into the house. The idiots are letting her get into her stride, said George, shaking his head. You have got to head her off early, otherwise she builds up a head of steam and goes on for hours. And she's been dying to have a go at Mandangas ever since to snake off when he was supposed to be following you. Harry and there goes Sirius, Mum again. Mrs. Wiley's voice was lost amid fresh shakers and screams from the portraits in the hall. George made to shut the door to drown the noise, but before he could do so, a house elf edged into the room. Except for the 50 rag tied like a loincloth around its middle, it was completely naked. It looked very old. Its skin seemed to be several times too big for an ant, thought it was built like old house elves. There was quantity of white hair growing out of its large, bulky ears. Its eyes were bloodshot and watery grey, and its fleshy nose was large and rather shot-like. The elf took absolutely no notice of Harry and the rest. Acting as though it could not see them, it shuffled, hunchbacked slowly and doggedly towards the far end of the room, all the while muttering under its breath in a hoarse, deep voice like a bullfrog's. Smells like a drain and criminal to boot, but she is no better nasty old blood traitor with her brats messing up my mistress' house. Oh, my poor mistress! If she knew the scum they have let into her house, what would she say to old Creator? Oh, she shame of it, mudbloods and werewolves and traitors, and this poor old creature, what can he do? Hello, creature, said Fred very loudly, closing the door with a snap. The house elf froze in his tracks, stopped muttering, and gave a very pronounced and very unconvincing start of surprise.
Still facing the carpet, he added, perfectly audibly, nasty little brat of a blood traitor it is. Sorry, said George. Didn't catch that last bit? Creature said nothing, said the elf with a second bow to George, adding in a clear undertone, and there's its twin, and a natural little bit they are. Harry didn't know whether to laugh or not. The elf straightened it up, eying them all melancholy, and apparently convinced that they could not hear him as he continued to mutter, as there is a mudblood, standing there, hold as breath of if my mistress knew, oh, how she'd cry, and there is a new boy. Creature doesn't know his name. What is he doing here? Creature doesn't know. This is a Harry creature, said Hermione tentatively. Harry Potter. Creature's pale eyes widened, and he measured faster and more fiercely than ever. The mudblood is talking to Creature as though she is my friend. If Creature's mistress saw him in such company, oh, what would she say? Don't call her a mudblood, said Ron and Ginny together very angrily. It doesn't matter, Hermione whispered. He's not in his right mind. He doesn't know what he is. Don't kid yourself, Hermione. He knows exactly what he's saying, said Fred, eyeing Creature with great dislike. Creature was still muttering, his eyes on Harry. It is true? Is it Harry Potter? Creature can see the scar. It must be true. That's the boy who stopped the Dark Lord. Creature wonders how he did it. Don't we all, Creature, said Fred. What do you want anyway? George asked. Creature's huge eyes darted towards George. Creature is cleaning, he said evasively. I like this story, said a voice behind Harry. Sirius had come back. He was glowering as the elf from the doorway. The noise in the hall had abated. Perhaps Messrs. Weasley and Montorps had moved their argument down into the kitchen. At the sight of Sirius, Creature flung himself into a ridiculously low bow that flattened his snout-like nose on the floor. Stand up straight, said Sirius impatiently. Now, what are you up to? Creature is cleaning. The elf repeated Creature's lips to serve the noble house of black, and it's getting blacker every day. It's fancy, said Sirius. Master always liked his little joke, said Creature, bowing again and continuing in the undertone. Master was a nasty, ungrateful swine who broke his mother's heart. My mother didn't have a heart, Creature, snapped Sirius. She kept herself alive out of pure spite. Creature bowed again and he spoke. Whatever Master says, he murmured furiously. Master is not fit to wipe slime from his mother's boots. Oh, my poor mistress. What would she say if she saw Creature serving him? How she hated him. What a disappointment he was. I asked you what you were up to, said Sirius coolly. Every time you show up pretending to be cleaning, you sneak something off to your room so we can throw it out. Creatures would never mow anything from its proper place in Master's house, said the elf.
its proper place in Master's house, said the elf, then muttered very fast. Mistress would never forgive creatures if the tapestry was thrown out. 7 centuries it's been in the family. Creature must save it. Creature will not let Master and the blood traitors and the bread destroy it. I thought it might be that, said Sirius, casting a disdainful look at the opposite wall. She'll have put another permanent sticking charm on the back of it. I don't doubt, but if I can get rid of it, I certainly will. Now go away, creature. It seems the creature did not dare disobey a direct order. Nevertheless, the look he gave Sirius as he shuffled out past him was full of deepest loathing, and he muttered all the way out of the room. Comes back from Azkaban ordering creature around. Oh, my poor mistress! What would she say if she saw the house now? Scum living in it, he throws it throughout. She swore he was no son of her, and his back, they say he's a murderer too. Keep muttering, and I will be a murderer, said Sirius irritably as he slammed the door shut on the elf. Sirius, she's not right in the head, Hermione pleaded. I don't think he realized we can hear him. He's been alone too long, said Sirius, talking mad orders from my mother's portrait, and I talking to himself. But he was always a fool little. If we could just set him free, said Hermione hopefully. Maybe. We can set him free. He knows too much about the order, said Sirius curtly. In any way, the thugs would kill him. You suggest to him that he leaves this house. See how he take it. Sirius walked across the room to where the tapestry creature had been trying to protect hung the length of the wall. Harry and others followed. The tapestry looked immensely old. It was faded and looked as through Duxes had naved it in places. Nevertheless, the golden thread with which it was embroidered still glinted brightly enough to show them a sprawling family tree dating back, as far as Harry could tell, to the Middle Ages. Large wood and the very top of the tapestry read, "The noblest and most ancient house of Black Todger Spur." "You're not on here," said Harry after scanning the bottom of the tree. "I used to be there," said Sirius, pointing at a small, round, chaired hole in the tapestry, rather like a cigarette barb. "My sweet old mother blasted me off after I ran away from home." Teacher's quite fond of muttering the story under his breath. "You ran away from home?" "When I was about 16, said Sirius. "I'd had enough." "Where did you go?" asked Harry, staring at him. "Your that place," said Sirius. "Your grandparents were really good about it. They sort of adopted me as a second son. Yeah, I camped out at your dad's in the school holidays, and when I was 17, I got a place of my own. My uncle Alfred had left me a decent bit of gold. He's been wiped off here, too, that's probably why. Anyway, after that, I look after myself."
I was always welcome at Mr. and Mrs. Potter's for Sunday lunch, though. But why did you leave? Sirius smiled bitterly and ran his fingers through his long unkempt hair. "Because I hated the whole lot of them. My parents, with their poor blood mania, convinced that to be a black made you particularly royal. My idiot brother, soft enough to believe them. That's him." Sirius jabbed a finger at the very bottom of the tree, at the name Regulus Black. A date of death, some 15 years previously, followed the date of birth. "He was younger than me," said Sirius, "and a much better son, as I was constantly reminded." "But he died," said Harry. "Yeah," said Sirius, "stupid idiot. He joined the Death Eaters." "You're kidding? Come on, Harry, haven't you seen enough of this house to tell what kind of wizards my family were?" said Sirius testily. Were your parents Death Eaters as well?" No, but believe me, they thought Voldemort had the right idea. They were all for the purification of the wizarding race, getting rid of muggle-borns and having poor bloods in charge. They weren't alone either. There were quite a few people before Voldemort showed his true colors, who thought he had the right idea about things. They got cold feet when they saw what he was prepared to do to get power, though. But I bet my parents thought Regulus was a right little hero for joining up at first. Was he killed by an auror? Harry asked tentatively. Oh no, said Sirius. No, he was murdered by Voldemort, or on Voldemort's order more likely. I doubt Regulus was ever important enough to be killed by Voldemort in person. From what I found out after he died, he got in so far, then panicked about what he was being asked to do and tried to back out. Well, you don't just hand in your resignation to Voldemort. It's a lifetime of service or death. Lunch, said Mr. Weasley's voice. She was holding her bone high in front of her, balancing a huge tray loaded with sandwiches and cake on its tip. She was very red in the face and still looked angry. The others moved over to her, eager for some food, but Harry remained with Sirius, who had bent closer to the tapestry. I haven't looked at this for years. Dearest Finis Nigilus, my great-great-grandfather. See? Least popular handmaster Hogwarts ever had. And Arimanda Mellifleur, cousin of my mother's, tried to force through a ministry bill to make Muggle hunting legal. And dear Aunt Eladora, she started the family tradition of beheading house elves when they got too old to carry tea trays. Of course, any time the family produced someone halfway decent, they were disowned. I think Tonks it's on here. Maybe that's why Creaker won't take order from her. He's supposed to do whatever any more in the family ask him. You and Tonks are related? Harry asked, surprised. Oh yeah, her mother Andromeda was my favorite cousin, said Sirius, examining the tapestry carefully. No, Andromeda's not on here either. Look. He pointed to another small round burn marked between two names, Bellatrix and Narcissa. Andromeda's sisters are still here because they make lovely, respectable purebred marriages, but Andromeda married a Muggle-born Ted Tonks, so...
The noble and most ancient house of Black. They made lovely, respectable, pure blonde marriages, but Andromeda married a Muggle-born Ted Tonks, so Sirius mimed, blasting the tapestry with a wand and laughed sourly. Harry, however, did not laugh. He was too busy staring at the names to the right of Andromeda's burn remark. A double line of gold embroidery linked Narcissa Black with Lucius Malfoy, and a single vertical gold line from their names lent to the name Draco. You're related to the Malfoys. The pure blonde families are all interrelated, said Sirius. If you're only going to let your sons and daughters marry pure blondes, your choice is very limited. There are hardly any of us left. Molly and I are commons by marriage, and Arthur's something like my second cousin once removed. But there's no point looking for them on here. If ever a family was a bunch of blood traitors, it's the Weasleys. But Harry was now looking at the name to the left of Andromeda's burn, Bellatrix Black, which was connected by a double line to Rodolphus Lestrange. Harry said aloud. The name had stirred something in his memory. He knew it from somewhere, but for a moment he couldn't think far. So it gave him an odd, creeping sensation in the pit of his stomach. "They're in Azkaban," said Sirius shortly. Harry looked at him curiously. Bellatrix and her husband, Rodolphus, came in with Barty Couch Junior, said Sirius in the same brusque voice. Rodolphus' brother, Rabastan, was with them too. Then Harry remembered he had seen Bellatrix Lestrange inside Dumbledore's pencil, the strange device in which thought and memories could be stored. A tall, dark woman with heavy-lidded eyes, who had stood at her trial and proclaimed her united allegiance to Lord Voldemort. Her pride that she had tried to found him after his downfall, and her conviction that she would one day be rewarded for her loyalty. "You never she was your. Does it matter if she's my cousin?" snapped Sirius. "As far as I'm concerned, they're not my family. She's suddenly not my family. I haven't seen her since I was age, and unless you count a glimpse of her coming into Azkaban. Do you think I'm proud of having a relative like her?" "Sorry," said Harry quickly. "I didn't mean. I was just surprised, that's all." "It doesn't matter. Don't apologize," Sirius mumbled. He turned away from the tapestry, his hands deep in his pockets. "I don't like being back here," he said, staring across the drawing room. "I never thought I'd be stuck in this house again." Harry understood completely. He knew how he would feel when he was grown up and thought he was free of the place forever, to return and live at number 4 Private Drive. "It's ideal for headquarters, of course," Sirius said. "My father put every security measure known to Viscount on in when he lived here. It's unplottable, so Muggles could never come and call as if they'd ever have wanted to. And now Dumbledore's added his protection. It'd be hard put to found a server house anywhere. Dumbledore is secret keeper for the order, you know. Nobody can found headquarters unless he tells them personally where it is. That note Maddie showed you last night, that was from Dumbledore.
If my parents could see the use their house was being put to now, well, my mother's contents should give you some idea. He scowled for a moment, then sighed. I wouldn't mind if I could just get one occasionally and do something useful. I've asked Dumbledore whether I can't escort you to your hearing as Snuffles, obviously so I can give you a bit of moral support. What do you think? Harry laughed as soon as his stomach had sunk through the dusty carpet. He had not thought about the hearing one science dinner the previous evening, in the excitement of being back with the people he liked best, and hearing everything that was going on. It had completely flown his mind. At Sirius' words, however, the crushing sense of dread returned to him. He started at Hermione and the Weasleys, all tucking into their sandwiches, and thought how we would feel if they went back to Hogwarts without him. Don't worry, Sirius said. Harry looked up and realized that Sirius had been watching him. I'm sure they'll clear you. There's definitely something in the international statute of secrecy about being allowed to use magic to save your own life. But if they do expel me, said Harry quietly, can I come back here and live with you? Sirius smiled sadly. We'll see. I'd feel a lot better about the hearing if I knew I didn't have to go back to the Dursley. Harry pressed him. They must be had if you prefer this place, said Sirius glumly. Hurry up, you two, or there won't be any food left, Mrs. Weasley called. Sirius have another great sight, cast a dark look at the tapestry, then he and Harry went to join the others. Harry tried his best not to think about the hearing while they emptied two glass-fronted cabinets that afternoon. Fortunately for him, it was a job that required a lot of concentration, as many of the objects in there seemed very reluctant to leave their dusty shelves. Sirius sustained a bad bite from a silver snuff box. Within seconds, his beaten hand had developed an unpleasant crusty covering like a tooth brown blow. It's okay, he said, examining the hand with interest before tapping it lightly with his wand and restoring its skin to normal. Must be water powder in there. He threw the box aside into the sack where they were depositing the debris from the cabinets. Harry saw George grab his own hand carefully in a close moments later and sneak the box into his already doxy-filled pocket. They found an unpleasant-looking silver instrument, something like a many-ledged pair of tweezers, which scuttles up Harry's arm like a spider when he picked it up, and attempted to puncture his skin. Sirius seized it and smashed it with a heavy book entitled Nature Nobility and Wizarding Genealogy. There was a musical box that emptied a faintly sinister, tinkling tune when Wood and they all found themselves becoming seriously awake and sleepy, until Ginny had the sense to slam the lid shut, and Favy locked that none of them could open, a number of ancient cells, and in a dusty box an order on Madeline First Class that had been awarded to Sirius' grandfather for service with the ministry. It means he gave them a lot of gold, said Sirius contemptuously throwing the medal into the rubbish sack.
Several times Cratchit sailed into the room and attempted to smuggle things away under his long clothes, muttering horrible curses every time they caught him at it. When Sirius wrested a large golden ring, bring the black crest from his grip. Creature actually burst into various tracks and left the room thumping under his brace and telling Sirius names Harry had never heard before. "It was my father," said Sirius, throwing the ring. "It was my father's," said Sirius, throwing the ring into the sack. Creature wasn't quite as devoted to him as to my mother, but I still caught him throwing a pair of my father's old towers last week. Mrs. Wesley kept them all working very hard over the next few days. The drawing room looked 3 days too documentary. Finally, the only undesirable things left in the bare tapestry of the Black family tree, which resisted all their attempts to remove it from the wall, and the retelling writing death. Moody had not dropped by Hogwarts yet, so they could not be sure what was inside it. They moved from the drawing room to a dining room of the ground floor, where they found spiders as large as circus lurking in the dresser. Ron left the room hurriedly to make a cup of tea and didn't return for an hour and a half. The china, which bore the black crest and motto, was also uncommissioned into a sack by Sirius, and the same fate met a seat of old photographs in tarnished silver frames, all of whose operations squealed shrilly as the glass covering them changed. Shape might refer to their work as cleaning, but in Harry's opinion they were really waning war on the house, which was putting up a very good fight, aided and ability by Creature. The house elf kept appearing wherever they were contributor, his metiering becoming more and more offensive, and he attempted to remove anything he could from the rubbish sack. Sirius went as far as to treacher him with clothes, but Creature fixed him with a water stain and said, "Master must do as master wishes," before turning away and muttering very loudly. "But master will not turn Creature away, no, because Creature knows what they are up to. Oh yes, he is plotting against the Dark Lord, yeah, with his mudflows and traitors and scum." At which Sirius, ignoring Hermione's protest, seized Creature by the back of his loincloth and threw him hardly from the room. Purple drank several times a day, which was a cry for Sirius' mother to start caring again, and for Harry and the other to empty to a drop on the visitor, throw the cleaned very little from the bright glimpses and chats of conversation they were able to sneak before Mr. Weasley reeled them to their task. Snape flighted in and out of the house several times more. Though to Harry's relief they never came face to face. Harry also caught sight of his transfiguring teacher, Professor Mickaniuk, looking very old in a muckle at dress and curl, and she also seemed to be a bit linear. Sometimes, however, the visitors stayed to help. Tonks joined them for a memorable afternoon in which they found an murderous old glue lurking in an upstairs toilet, and Lupin, who was staying in the house with Sirius, but who left in for long periods to my mysterious work for the order, helped them repair, and Grandfather Clock said had developed the unpleasant habit of shooting heavy bolts. And passerby. McGonagall presented himself slightly Mrs. Weasley's eyes by breathing Ron from an assistant seat of purple rubber that had traveled to strange him when he removed them from their wardrobe. Despite the fact that he was still sleeping, Hadley still having dreams about corridors and locked doors that made his care brisk. Harry was magnificent to have fun for the first time all summer, as long as he was busy be happy. When the action abated, however, whenever he dropped his gripe, to lay exhausted in bed watching blurred shadow more across the ceiling, the throw for the looming mysteries having returned to him. Fear jabbed at his inside like needles as he wondered what was going to happen to him if he was expelled. The idea was so terrible that he didn't draw was it alone, not even to Ron and Hermione, who, though he often saw them, his sparring together and casting noxious looks in his direction, followed his lead is not magnificent it. Sometimes him a feckless minister official who snapping his went into to ordering him back off the throttle. But he would not go. He was department on set. He would come back there to criminal place and live with Sirius. He left at throw a brick had dropped into his stomach when Mrs. Weasley turned to him during dinner on Wednesday evening and said quietly, "I've ironed your best clothes for tomorrow morning, Harry, and I want you to wash your hair tonight too. A good first impression can evoke wonders." Ron, Hermione, Fred, George, and Ginny all stopped talking and looked over at him. Harry nodded to and tried to keep eating his chop, but his mouth had become so dry he could not them. "Now I'm getting there?" he asked Mrs. Weasley, trying to sing and crowed. "Arthur's taking you to walk with him," said Mrs. Weasley gently. Mrs. Weasley smiled encouragingly at Harry across the table. "You can wait in my office until it's time for the hearing," he said. Harry looked over at Sirius, but before he could ask the question, Mrs. Weasley had answered it. Professor Dumbledore doesn't think it's a good idea for Sirius go to with me. And I must say, think he's quite right, said Sirius through clean teeth. Mrs. Weasley pursed her lips. When did Dumbledore tell you that? Harry said, staring at Sirius. Sirius stepped moodily at a potato with his fork. Harry lowered his own eyes to his place. The thought that Dumbledore has been in the house of the eve of his having and noticed to see him made him feel, if it were possible, even worse.